Welcome back to another episode of Taking the Supply Chain Pulse. I'm Joe Nemeth with St. Onge Company, and today we're joined by Eric O'Daffer, Managing Director of Healthcare Advisory LLC and former head of healthcare at Gartner. Eric brings decades of experience at the intersection of strategy, innovation, and healthcare leadership. So let's dive in with your host, Fred Crantons. Take it away, Freddie.
So Eric, welcome. Happy to have you on.
It's great to be here, Fred. Looking forward to it.
You're out there in Seattle, right? Is it raining?
It is going to rain. Just drips. This is the time of year we call January here. The rest of the country gets summer, and we get 55 and rainy for the first couple of weeks of June. But then it turns beautiful and is the greatest place on earth. But early June, not our best foot forward.
It is a great place. I love it out there. So tell us, Eric, what have you been doing since you left Gartner? You left, a couple years ago or a little over a year ago? What have you been doing?
Yeah, well, you're right. It's been just a little over a year. I think April of 2025. And, I intended to retire and kind of done what I could do at Gartner. I felt that it had run its course for me. Still believe in what they're doing over there, but for me it was time to be done. And then a few companies reached out as I did that and said, "Hey, how about this?" And it was just kind of fortuitous that it caused me to have to think about, okay, well, what do you want to do in the last innings here, your career? Kind of forced me to think about what that guiding light was, what that true north was, and I picked 3 companies to work with in areas that I thought would be interesting for me.
Well, what is that true north?
Well, the true north is helping advance healthcare supply chain. So that's the overriding piece of it. Out of the gate, I'm really doing it in 3 ways. One is through AI and technology adoption. And in that realm, I'm supporting a company called Clarium. It's an AI platform company. I'm working on indirect spend, right? I watched the areas of supply chain. 40% of the total cost of supply chain at the health system is related to products that don't come in services that don't come in a box. 800 different categories of them. I watched it, wrote research around it, and it just hadn't made a lot of progress. So in that capacity, I'm an advisor for a new company to the industry called Logic Source. They've been around in other industries with great success and are bringing that model to healthcare. It's been a great service so far. And then lastly, I work with Vizient on metrics and benchmarking. So the work that they have kind of looked at that and said I'd done a lot of work around how systems think about their maturity and how they measure that both qualitatively and quantitatively, and trying to use kind of determined that a company that had data in an ecosystem was another interesting way to look at it. To get a more definitive comparison of what that looks like. So I'm trying to help Vizient around that for their membership. So kind of maturity, AI and technology, and then these areas of underdeveloped spend. And I may at some point add capital equipment. It's another area that I find pretty interesting. It's a much bigger part of supply chain than most people think. About 7% of the total spend. And it gets underrepresented. So I don't do anything there specifically, but I've got interest.
Well, I think when you talk about capital, you're sort of getting into another thing that I see, and that is as IDNs grow and continue to acquire and merge with other hospitals or systems, they're acquiring places that needed help, or they probably wouldn't have failed to the point where they had to merge. Is that fair to say? And if that is fair to say, then there's a whole area that they have probably ignored or done poorly, and that is capital equipment planning and standardization and the philosophy of how to maintain that capital equipment. I was at ARM a couple of years ago, and I was at a presentation by an Air Force colonel, and there were a whole bunch of senior officers in the background. And when we got done, I asked one of the Air Force colonels, I said, how come the defense budget is shot up to the point where it's $970 billion now? And he says because of the cost of capital equipment, because of the cost of capital and weapons, and he said it's not the people, it's the stuff. And I think if that's true there, it's also true in healthcare. But let's get into your three areas. Talk about this. I noticed you had written to me about doubling investment in technology, AI, and analytics. How would you go about doubling investment in technology? Where would you focus your efforts? And just give us a little bit of your insights on that, Eric.
Yeah, in some of the benchmarking work, that I'd done in the past, we uncovered that, this area just wasn't. It was a small portion of the operating budget of supply chain. And so I looked at it, and a lot of it was tied to ERP investments, and then some of these kind of just, I call them kind of episodic platforms that organizations had bought over the years. And this is at the health system level. So I think as you kind of come through this, we've invested a lot in, kind of capital assets and a lot of stuff around logistics and the movement of products, specifically med-surg. And I just think we need to shift some of this budget to thinking about how we get to these AI platforms that start to tie the data together on multiple different efforts and leverage and take out costs of employees through the use of agents, and use that data in a different way to aid and assist in standardization, ways to think about inventory and risk and resiliency. So there's all these different kind of roadmaps that these companies that are building out these platforms have. And health systems, for whatever reason, I think some of it's just that they haven't been able to get investment in many cases, or at least the middle of our market hasn't been able to do that, should be leaning into these technologies, voting with their dollars to support them, picking a platform company, that's got a roadmap that aligns to what they're doing, and then expect, much like you'd buy a CSC, and use that as a city on a hill to drive compliance and understanding of supply chain, these data and technology and AI investments to leverage and bring the value from the 40% of the health system budget that's tied to supply chain should just be something that health systems are leaning into. And for whatever reason, we've looked at some of these vendors over the years as at kind of an arm's length. Many have. And I think it's time to do what other industries have done, which is embrace them, bring them into the fold, invest in them, expect a lot out of them when you're doing it, but lean in a little bit more than we've done.
You have sort of a wide global view of healthcare, so your experience spans a great gamut. Is there anyone that is approaching the use of technology and AI, and I don't say just AI, technology and AI, that you've seen that you could tell us about, and what areas of operations, either in supply chain or in just the healthcare organization itself, would you sort of earmark as places to start with the use of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I view it as a haves and have-nots, and you can look to some of the more mature health systems in my old world at Gartner, the Mayo Clinics, the Cleveland Clinics, Intermountain, Stanford, Advent Health. I mean, some of these organizations have really invested in this and seen it as some of their, kind of core operations of their business. And there's more, that have done that as well. But, those are good places to look and go, hey, how are they bringing these, 30 to 60 different areas that have data for supply chain, somehow touching it and bringing it to the market? And to me, it's not that hard. There's a risk and resiliency piece of this, a service piece that are being built out. There's the ability to take, and use AI in the transaction to make sure that you're getting the right price, and perfect order, and make sure you're capturing all the value in the financial transaction. There's a lot of work that is being done that's really effective and cool in preference card clinical areas, and the way that those are being managed and standardized in a way that brings new value. And then there's leverage across other applications as well that sit in contract lifecycle management. There's ways to use AI in the way that indirect spend is being managed. And so I think what you have to do is find those companies that are really employing it and not just giving words to it, but showing and demonstrating resources that are out there. And, it lends you to some of these companies that are, we don't have a lot of venture-backed organizations that are coming into the healthcare supply chain, but there are some that are out there that are bringing real dollars, real investment into the industry, and we should be finding a way to support those. And if the incumbents are investing in those areas, we should be leaning into the solutions that they're bringing too.
Are there companies that the rapid rise in technology is so recent? Are there companies out there that can show demonstrated ROIs for their offerings, the measured ROIs that they actually have produced results, or is it still all a narrative on their part?
No, there's companies that are doing it. Some of them, you've got to attribute some soft dollars of value to it in a little bit. What's the value of resiliency? In a predictable supply chain is tougher. Some of the stuff that's around preference card management in the OR and some of the transactional pieces that go, hey, are we paying the same price? Are we rationalizing, and making sure we're taking advantage of all our terms systematically? Are we thinking about our spend and categorizing it in the right way? Some of those areas are showing some pretty clear ROI. But as you mentioned, we're early, right? This is, I don't know, inning 2 of a 9-inning game. And so it's some of this is an evolving practice where leaders are layering into these technologies and learning from each other. And so it's almost like a sandbox in a way that go, hey, let's learn from each other. We're developing, these solutions for, other health systems that we may not be competitive with, and how do we learn from each other? But you've got to, at the end of it, have investment in those resources to go after it. And, those are some of the companies that I'm trying to lean into, where they've got those resources, they've got that platform, and they're coming at it from a different angle, with that investment in tow.
And then you have the systems. Are the systems eager to incorporate technology, or are they desperate to incorporate technology?
I'd say eager would be better. Many of them just don't quite know, kind of where to go, or they may pick up a place. They may be under pressure to reduce their staff. That's still, a pretty pressing issue, supply chain talent and staffing. And so there's some folks that are very, centered on the agent model and how they reduce labor through this. I think the bigger opportunities on the data and the way that you yield that data and tie those systems together and use AI to make better decisions and enable cost savings. But I think most see it as an opportunity. It's kind of a carrot, but there's also many, because you talked about the ROI, where the ROI is out there. They don't want to go implement 20 different solutions. So it's what's led me to this kind of platform concept, which is, hey, pick a platform, and there's multiple out there that's got a roadmap that you believe in. Get your organization to buy into, because most of the health systems are saying, they've got an AI strategy for the whole business, and how do you incorporate and layer in this supply chain AI strategy that fits into that mold. So I think you've got to look at it as an opportunistic way to yield benefits from multiple things without having to implement 6 different partners, or 10 different partners, or 12 different. So I kind of view it's not necessarily, best in class spot solution. It is platform with an expectation that you're going to go down the roadmap and spend more money, and give more resources to those companies that are building out solutions that'll help you in aggregate across multiple different areas of your supply chain.
And it's going to take a lot of collaboration. It's not just buy a box, plug it in, and see immediate measurable savings. You're going to have to work back and forth with the supplier of this technology. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, particularly in these early days, And I guess those are always the questions, right? Are you an early adopter? Are you a late adopter? My take is it's better for most folks to be an early adopter, and be part of the solution and building it out, right? It's a collaborative industry that's got a lot of good things going for it. Because if you wait for it to all be built out in a perfect, hey, just go do this and implement it, it's 5 years, and you're behind the curve of value compared to your peers. And everything that we know from the financial pressure side says the next couple of years are going to look a little rougher, just because of the reimbursement and the big beautiful bill and all the things that are coming. We'll see what actually comes from it. But healthcare futurists that I listen to are saying, hey, this is going to come to roost. And those that are preparing and thinking about it, I think are going to be ahead of it. And my strategy always for the chief supply chain officers is, you're the CEO of supply chain. You got to be thinking about the investments that you need to deliver it. You're not necessarily an operator. You're somebody bringing resources to a problem to deliver value. And AI technology platforms, partners in a different way, across different areas of spend that maybe you don't have the capability or you haven't always been great at. It's time to get more aggressive on the partnering front than maybe we've been in the past. And there's some men that are just leaning into it, and they are leading the way, and they're way ahead of me and kind of where I think. But there's a lot in kind of the middle that are a little paralyzed, and I don't know how to best help those folks, because in many cases they don't have senior leadership that wakes up every morning understanding the value that supply chain can deliver, not only on the cost front, but on the whole alignment and integration into the fabric of delivering care. So we still have work to do there.
Before we dive back in, you may be asking yourself, is my supply chain future ready? At St. Onge Company, we don't just optimize logistics, we engineer smarter, leaner, and more resilient systems from end to end. From manufacturing to retail to healthcare, our experts bring decades of experience and cutting-edge strategies to transform your operations. Visit and discover how we're shaping the future of supply chain, one solution at a time.
Okay, Eric, so we just finished talking about technology, and I would argue that technology's opportunities are new and increasing rapidly because of AI and machine learning and all the other tools that are developing. But the other two areas that you talk about addressing, which is the indirect spend and capital equipment, sort of fall under the category, in my mind's eye, of it's about time. These opportunities have been around forever. They've been overlooked either because no one thought about looking at them or it was too difficult. Directors of areas where those opportunities exist would be very protective of their departments and not want any help or any input. And so we just kept trying to find better prices and get rid of people. So tell us what you're doing in indirect spend, and also after that into the areas of capital equipment.
Yeah, so indirect spend has just been one thread, and you hit the nail on the head, right? It's been out there for a long time. I've written different pieces of research around it over the years, around how to attack purchase services, the services that don't come in a box, right? They're highly variable in the service capabilities locally for these health systems, and they don't kind of align super well to national contracting. And it's super amorphous, 800 different categories. And it's rare for health systems to kind of, level set the way that they approach that for the dollars that are spent in these areas, with sourcing resources and the capabilities to listen to end users, set a specification for a service, source it, and then hold the organization accountable. So I'm an advisor for Logic Source. They're a new approach to going after this spend. And I've just kind of watched, different consulting firms, the GPOs, some of these technology platform firms that have had promise, but just still, for whatever reason, we haven't quite nailed it down. And I guess I attribute some of it to governance, just the right to come in and get access to the spend, marketing spend, benefits spend, legal spend, facilities spend, right? These big categories of dollars that are equal or greater to what's spent in medical, surgical, medical device, and even pharmaceuticals, kind of combined. It's about equal in what's spent in these services, and we've just under-resourced for it. So I think there's got to be a different approach, and that's the one that I'm trying to support with LogicSource to come in and bring outside industry benchmarks and an approach using technology to and resources to attack and address that spend.
Well, I know LogicSource has got some high-level people there with some real expertise. My question is, how do you knock on the door of an organization and get them to crack it open and give you the opportunity to talk about what you might be able to do?
Yeah, and I'm not on the sales side. I'm on the advisory side and on the, advocating for a solution side. But I do think, as I've watched it, it usually comes, in the best case, it's led by a chief supply chain officer that goes, look, we haven't been able to address this effectively. We need more resources, and it's a catalyst bringing somebody in like LogicSource to get those resources, to approach these areas of spend and kind of get governance. It's the city on a hill. I liken it to the equivalent of having a CSC. CSC, for medical, surgical, and devices doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the most mature health system, but the health system understands it across the enterprise when you've got the big building. So making an investment with a third party tends to, kind of make everybody go, yep, okay, we're supporting this. This is an initiative that we're going to. But ultimately, typically the CFO, COO has to buy in and say, yep, hey, this is an area we're going to invest in a different way and go approach it. Because you've got to get governance. There's got to be somebody that's got air cover to go, hey, these departments that have, as you mentioned, have historically kind of done their own thing, been maverick spenders. We've got to kind of align that under a professional supply chain service, and we can yield a benefit from it. And the benefit's been great, but you've got to have governance to go after it first. It's the get helicopters in the jailbreak initiative. Somebody's got to has the tough one that they've got to capture.
Yeah, well, given the fiscal challenges that everybody faces, I think all organizations are more willing to approach these opportunities. And that brings us to the last one, the capital equipment planning. For the 60 years I've been in healthcare, every year it used to be a free-for-all for the capital budget. And that was when most places were standalone community hospitals. Now you have systems with 10, 12, 15, 20 hospitals plus scores of other delivery areas. And you have to capitalize those places, and you have to come up with a plan. How do you go about addressing that? What would you tell us about the approach that people should be looking at for managing and handling those things?
Well, I think first it's recognition of just how much of the spend it represents. And right, it's not quite the equivalent of med-surg in terms of dollars, but it's 70% of it. It's big if you think about rolling capital and the hundreds of categories of those products that are out there. And the fact that many of them have also a utilization component of it, whereas you've bought them, you've got to standardize it on it, and then you've got those assets in different locations, and they may not be utilized as efficiently as they could be. So it's really, I guess it's really just a resource allocation process and a governance process that says, yes, supply chain should own this. Yes, there's a budgeting component of it. Yes, there's a standardization across these growing health systems that have got, more locations, and then there's an uptime and a life cycle to this equipment. So today we see it managed still predominantly on spreadsheets, and sometimes with a clinical engineering biomedical company that comes along as a partner. But still, it's not necessarily tied directly to the budgeting. It's not tied directly to new construction and the addition of facilities. And for sure, it's not always, particularly with the M&A activity, standardized across the enterprise. So really putting resources toward it would be my first thing. An owner of capital equipment as 7 to 10% of the total spend of supply chain. enabling that with technology platform, and a partner on the biomedical clinical engineering side that just looks at, everything from budgeting and offer to sourcing to product lifecycle management to end of life process, to kind of uptime and allocation of the equipment. It's a real opportunity, and it's also got a cybersecurity component of it. We're watching in some cases this getting now pushed to the chief technology officer on the side in terms of ownership because of the cybersecurity issues that are exposed here. So I think it's really a comprehensive look at the total expense, the risk of the organization, and just how you best have that equipment in the right place for clinicians to do their job efficiently and effectively. There's partnership opportunities with the manufacturers. There's partnership opportunities with the biomedical companies, and there's really some growing great technology platform companies that are the foundation of this that I just think are under invested in.
Yeah, and the one commonality among all three of the areas that you're focusing on is you have to have strong leadership. You have to have visionary leadership. You have to have capable leadership at all levels, from an administrative level, excuse me, to contracting level, to whatever. And so you got to want to do it. If you want to bring process into an organization, you got to be willing to commit to providing the right resources and the support to get it done. Is that fair?
It is, and as you point out, it's a little bit like non-acute. When these health systems bought all the physician offices, a lot of health systems went down the path and said, "Hey, I'm going to take a really good up and coming person in my organization and put them in charge of non-acute." It's the same thing it should be the same thing for capital, and it should be the same thing for indirect spend. They're huge categories. They deserve a leader that has a career path within it that can grow it. The number of health systems that I talk to that are $3 to $5 billion that have a couple people kind of randomly doing capital equipment and 3 or 4 that might be doing purchase services, indirect spend. They're just really under-resourced, both from a personnel standpoint. And then if you hire the right leaders, that leader is effectively going to go, look, I can't do my job without partners, without technology. So it kind of rolls down, I think, like many things from that leadership. But you've got to get resources to it, and we've just under-resourced it.
Yeah, historically, that's been a symptom of healthcare in general, supply chain in particular, under-resourced. Well, Eric, excuse me, thanks for joining us. And there were 2 areas that we've left out that I'd like to have a future discussion about. Number one is the emerging supply chain leader, what that person needs to look like, what that person's capabilities need to be, what you see out there, who you've seen that's done things well, what you would advocate. And the second part is what I casually call benchmarking, but measuring your operation to the point where you can measure yourself so that you can see how effective things that you've tried to implement are toward improvements. And this is where your expertise has been in benchmarking, and I think that a lot of people would love to hear your insights on that. So would it be possible to get you back for another episode sometime in the near future?
You bet, Fred. You're a bright light. I love your voice in the industry, and appreciate you having me on today. And I'd love to talk about both those issues. They're meaty, and lots of things that are going on that are great, but also areas for development as well.
Okay, well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate. I know that we've had a couple stumbles here with technology ourselves as we've been trying to do this podcast, and I appreciate you for hanging in there. And I hope to talk to you again soon in the future.
Thanks, Fred. Be good.
Take care.
Well, that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and connect with us online so you'll never miss an episode and can catch up on all the ones you might have missed. Got a topic you're fired up about, or maybe you want to be a guest on the show? Fred would love to hear from you. Just reach out at fcrans at stonge.com. We'll see you next time.